Hello everyone, Oli here, and this is my review of The Wheel in Space, the seventh and final story of season 5 of classic Doctor Who, starring Patrick Troughton as the second Doctor. The Wheel in Space is the 43rd story overall, it's 6 episodes long, and is written by David Whittaker, based on an idea from Kip Hedler. Of all 6 episodes, only episodes 3 and 6 survive, whilst the rest are missing. Censor clips of episode 4 and 5 do exist, and a heavily condensed animated version of episode 1 can be found on the Makataro DVD. The Wheel in Space is as follows. The TARDIS materializes on board the spaceship, the Silver Carrier, where the second Doctor and Jamie are attacked by a servo robot. Jamie contacts a nearby space station known as the Wheel, and they are rescued. Meanwhile, the Silver Carrier discharges Cybermats, which also travel to and enter the station. These pave the way for the invasion of the station by Cybermen, who intend to use its radio link with Earth as a beacon for the invasion fleet. So that is the plot for The Wheel in Space, and The Wheel in Space, in my opinion, it's okay. I mean, it could have been a lot better. I mean, this story isn't really well liked by Whovians, and it does appear quite low on rankings for the Charlton era. I understand the reason why it is not liked, but it's slow most of the time, but it's a possible-ish story. The production, I'd say, is decent. The story itself was shot entirely on studio. No location filming was needed, and that hasn't happened for a very long time, as the entire episode was pretty much set in outer space. So there wasn't really any need to go to any quarries or a town centre somewhere in England. I like the sets though, especially the title wheel in space model, and I liked how the wheel was actually shown after the title sequence, well, whilst the title sequence was playing in the background. The script was okay, nothing too special. There was some faults which I'll get onto later, and the plot was okay, but at times it was actually quite unclear what it was actually about. The Cybermen don't show up until the end of episode 2, and when they do actually show up, they just attack and hypnotize most of the real workers, and then we don't actually find out what they were actually doing until at least well into episode 6, the final episode. Now, onto the acting on this story. It was alright. Not the best acting I've seen, to be honest. I mean, it was just at a gradual pace. Nothing was improving. Nothing was bad. Just that. Charlton was okay. And once again, this isn't his best performance, but even I felt the Doctor himself doesn't actually do a whole lot in the story. He's just there. And I did like in episode 1 how it was just the Doctor and Jamie exploring the Silver Carrier. It definitely showed the strengths these Patrick Troughton and Fraser Hines had as a duo. And I also like how this story actually takes place after Free from the Deep. Well, immediately after Free from the Deep, after Victoria has decided to stop traveling with the Doctor and Jamie and decided to stay behind with the Harrises. And I like how Jamie actually, at some point in episode 1, actually asked the Doctor, will Victoria be happy? And the Doctor says that because she's in the civilized time, she'll be a lot happier there. In addition, this is actually the first time the Doctor actually uses his John Smith alias, even though it was in actual fact, Jamie was actually the one that gave the Doctor the alias when General Corwin was asking who the Doctor was. And Jamie does do a bit of heavy lifting now that the established Victoria has gone, and then especially in episode 2 when the Doctor is actually knocked out after hitting his head during the fall. That reason being because Troughton was actually on holiday in episode 2. He does manage to destroy the wheel's laser, which was actually going to destroy the Silver Carrier, and that's where the TARDIS was. And when confronted about it was a very funny scene when he was confronted about it. Jamie was like, "The Doctor told me to protect it." This is in episode 3, by the way. And then the scene later, the Doctor is like, "What an excuse! What sort of excuse is that?" It was a very funny scene, to be honest. That's probably one of my favorite scenes in that story. We also gain a new companion in Zoe Herriot. She's the astrophysicist of the world, and she's extremely clever, and at times during her travels with the Doctor, she actually shows that she is at times cleverer than the Doctor himself, and that is something we haven't seen at this point. And I love Zoe, and I actually love that. And it is very quickly established that Zoe is very different to Victoria. Not only is she, and to an extent, to some of the female companions we've actually seen in the past. And this is actually one of the reasons why Zoe Herriot is actually one of my favorite companions, because she's intensely clever and she's not afraid to speak her mind. Plus, she's cute as well, and I would say Zoe actually does pave the way for future companions such as Liz Shaw, Sarah Jane Smith, both of the Romanas, and etc. etc. So after the Cybermen are defeated, Zoe somehow sneaks aboard the TARDIS without the Doctor and Jamie knowing, and then I think the Doctor actually catches Zoe coming out of, well, peeking out of the chest, and then the Doctor actually shows her after the Zoe tells the Doctor that she wants to travel with them. Jamie was obviously not sure about it, and then the Doctor was actually said that she can actually travel with us, but she needs to be aware of the danger she could actually face up to. And I think the reason why the Doctor did this because he doesn't want Zoe to actually go through what Victoria went through during when she was traveling with them. And the Doctor actually shows Zoe a clip from the Evil of the Daleks, and that's how Zoe joins the TARDIS. Now, on to the side characters of this story. I feel as if there were two or three characters too many, but they were all okay. So one of the first main side characters we had was Leo Ryan. He was the communications officer. He was well written, didn't do much, but he was okay. We had Tanya Lernoff. She was an astronomer, and she does have a bit of a romance plot with Leo, and then they seem to be rather close when after the Cybermen were defeated. She does return in the war games, but the circumstances on why she returned, I'll get to that when I get to the war games review. I like her character, even though she doesn't really do much, just as much as Leo as well. Another character I noticed was Enrico Casali. He doesn't do much, he's just there, but the reason why I noticed him because he's played by a younger Donald, let's see what his name is again. But Donald Sumter, he was in Game of Thrones and appeared in Doctor Who, in the Sea Devils, and he was in the Sarah Jane Adventures as well. And he was a good character, even though he doesn't really do much. But I still like the fact that I was able to recognize him. We had Dr. Gemma Corrin. She was the second in command of the war, and she actually stood out in compared to the other side characters. So I pretty much like her compared to the others. She was cool, calm, collected, and a decent character. And I was a bit sad when the Cybermen actually killed her in episode 5. We had Bill Duggan, he was the engineer, and he and Jarvis Bennett catch Jamie destroying the laser that was actually going to destroy the carrier, but then he gets hypnotized by the Cybermen and actually kills himself by destroying the communication server, and that clip actually exists. That's the surviving clip of episode 4. And finally, we have Jarvis Bennett. He was the commander-in-chief, and he was very dismissive of the Cybermen. And for someone who's a commander, he doesn't really do a whole lot other than shouting and all of that. He's pretty much like a discount version of Robson from the previous story. He does get killed by a Cyberman in episode 6 though. So now on to the villains. The Cybermen return for a fourth encounter with the Doctor, and I would say they were okay, but they were clearly not their best here, and they could have been a lot better. And they obviously get a redesign for some odd reason. I really don't understand why they had to change the design, because I actually like the design that was the Cybermen had in the two previous Cybermen stories. But on the bright side, they do have their teardrop motifs on the side of their eyes, and that's something that remains on every Cyberman design from this point. And also, the Cybermen themselves looked really awkward. They were very sluggish in terms of speech and movement, and for some reason, they were rocking back and forth for some odd reason. Whenever I think they were trying to indicate to who was talking, so the Cybermen were just rocking back and forth, just to indicate who was actually talking. And as I mentioned before, the Cybermen don't really do much. I mean, they show up, hypnotize the real workers, as reported the cyber planet, and that was pretty much it. Not to mention for the whole story, there are only 2 Cybermen inside the wheel that were causing the main conflict, and the cyber ship that actually appears in the final few minutes of episode 6 gets destroyed, and then we see other Cybermen like moonwalking and trying to get to the wheel, and then they're suddenly blown away. We also have the Cybermats returning. They attack a few wheel workers, and there was a really good scene in episode 3 where they actually kill one of the workers there, and his face was just like, and that was actually a good scene. And then after the Doctor identifies the Cybermats, which the Doctor then deduces that the Cybermen are nearby, they just vanish after that. We don't see them anymore. If they were there, they would have made the story more tense, in my opinion. So on to the other fault of the story. I mean, the plot was very slow, but it managed to hold me. and the pacing wasn't good as well. It was very evident in episodes 4 and 5, which I found very slow. Nothing much really happened. It was just there, in my opinion. And plus, there was no incidental music, which I actually found disappointing, other than the reused music that we heard in the Web Planet and other Doctor Who stories in episode 1, and then after that, that would just be too much it. In my opinion, the Reading Space did have potential, but once again, the story was too long. The plot was overcomplicated and a bit unclear, and I would say this is probably the weakest Cyberman story for Troughton. But it does have some redeemable qualities, though, I can say. And it's a story one can breeze through despite. And actually somehow kept me interested, even though there was a bit of a drag. I mean, I pretty much watched it very not a whole lot of time, and if the story was a four-parter and have some other stuff removed from the script as well, it would have been better. So I gave The Wheeling Space a 6 out of 10. So that's it. That's the reviews for season 5 done. Stay tuned for the ranking of this season, and thanks for watching this review. Please let me know what you thought of this story and this review, and please subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already if you're new here, and until then, see you next time.